Hello and welcome to the Garian Tabletop. I am Garian Reaver and this is a Far Waste devlog. Apologies about the lack of devlogs lately. We're taking our time on the art to make sure it's the best it can be, but we've been hard at work. Mostly I've been researching animals that can be encountered in the old UE, but today's devlog is about something entirely different. Mutation. As always, any content in this is subject to change as the game grows and we get feedback. If you have any thoughts, don't hesitate to put them in the comments, or come join us on the Garian Reaver Discord, linked in the description. Do you want to mutate? There are tons of great things that can come from mutation, and some bad things. Mostly good things, but definitely some bad. Mutation is a lottery, sort of. I've previously talked about mutation as a method of player self-improvement. You can check that out in devlogs 3 and 5, which are about player improvements and the mutant genus respectively. In this log, we'll be taking a much deeper dive looking at the mutation table and the mechanics around it. To catch you up, mutation is one way players can increase their stats and gain new abilities. Compared to honing and cybernetics, the other two methods, mutation is riskier. As you'll see soon, it doesn't always work out, but you do have more chances for it to. Caused by mutagens, chemical waste, irradiated pools, and other sources, mutation is an unpredictable change that alters one's body. Compared to cybernetics, mutations are a biological part of someone, making them virtually impossible to disrupt or disable. When you mutate by any source, you don't pick exactly what you get. Instead, you roll a d20 on the mutation table twice. We'll quickly go through the table in a second, but the basis is this. The higher the number you roll, the better your mutation. That isn't guaranteed. You may want something specific lower on the table, but you don't want to get too low. A result of 5 or less means you've got a bad mutation. The table is jam-packed with weird and unusual abilities, with even the most basic representing a rewrite of your genetic code. Most results provide a choice of specific effects, and in addition to any listed effects, the player or GM can choose to make a visual change to any aspect of themselves. This visual change cannot have mechanical effects, it's purely flavor. If a result is rolled that cannot have any effects, like due to already possessing all possible abilities on it, re-roll the dice. Let's start at the top and work down. Good news first. 20 is targeted optimization. Very simply, increase any stat by 1. The most flexible result, this likely represents internal streamlining that improves whatever you need it to. 19 is acute regeneration. Most characters' passive healing restores 10% of their max health per hour of rest. This mutation changes that to 20%. Note that it doesn't increase it, it changes it. This can't stack. 18 is Armored Skin. This causes you to gain 2 points of natural Ossite armor. Ossite is something I'll talk about in a future video. 2 points of armor isn't a lot, but it basically reduces all incoming damage by 2 pretty much forever. This can stack. This is also the first on the table that must make a noticeable physical change. Some mutations are hidden or subtle, but some can be seen, recognized. More about that later, but I'll mention when a result requires a noticeable change. 17. Muscle reinforcement. This and 16 are very similar but divergent. Increase resistance, might, or finesse by 1. Obviously a less flexible result than 20, but res and fin are fairly universal stats. 16. Mental accentuation. The flip side to 17, increase observation, communication, intelligence, or tech by 1, or gain 2 skill points. Between those two results, that's all the stats. 15 is where stuff starts getting weird. Organ evolution. Choose 2 options between the brain, the liver, the lungs, the stomach, or +1 res. The brain makes you immune to pain, roleplay stuff. The liver makes you take half toxic damage. Lungs allow you to hold your breath for double the time. And stomach means you take half the irradiation from food and drink. More on that another time. You get 2 of them because they're mostly fairly minor buffs. 14 and 13 are again reflections of each other. 14 is hulking form. Choose one option between increased carry capacity, +2 max health per level, extendable natural claws or blades, or +1 might. Whatever you pick, your weight increases by 10% and it must make some physical change. 13 is lithe form. Choose between +2 evasion, requiring half as much food per day, +4 meters of free movement, or +1 finesse. Weight decreases by 10%, and again, it must be noticeable. The variety of choice is done in such a way that any result can be helpful for whatever build you have. Even if you're going for a bulky armoured tank, less food or more movement is still helpful. A result of 12 is sharpened senses. Choose between immunity to deafness, immunity to blindness, night vision, or +1 obs. Yeah, probably the night vision, unless you get it from your genus. 11 is chemical production, another weird one. Choose between an acid sac, a slime sac, a venom sac, or pheromones. These give you a corrosive or toxic spit attack, slimy or toxic secretions, or +1 comm. 10 is preternatural insight. Choose between echolocation, infrared sight, a +4 to reaction rolls, or +1 intelligence. 9 is electrical sensitivity, and the last of the results that can provide a stat boost. Choose between electricity detection, static discharge, a shock attack, or +1 tech. 8 is temperature control. You can take half chill damage, half heat damage, or you can get a fire attack. You know, whatever you prefer. 7 is new adaptation. Choose between absorptive muscles to reduce fall damage, adhesive touch to climb walls, gills to breathe underwater, or webbed digits to swim faster. Arguably absorptive muscles isn't obvious, but the rest require a noticeable change. The final good one is extra appendage. Choose between gaining a new arm, which gives you an extra hand, a new leg, giving +2 meters of free movement, or a prehensile tail or tentacle. Prehensile means you can hold stuff in it and control it. The new appendage does not need to match your genus, and obviously this will make a noticeable change. The last 5 are considered negatives, and most people will want to avoid them. 5 is genetics rewritten. Your genus changes to mutant. Whether you're an overt or repressed mutant is determined by the obviousness of your current mutations. This has no effect if you're already a mutant, but this means your first roll can turn you into one. You'd lose all your genus and species traits, except one if you're repressed, but you'd gain the mutant traits. This does not change your stats. This shows there's a marked difference between having mutations and being a mutant. There is a line in the sand in your DNA. A result of 4 is when things start getting nasty. Minor abnormality. If you get this, you roll on the abnormality table to find out in what way you change for the worse. I won't rattle through that table too, but essentially they're non-visual mutations that provide, at best, a minor obstacle, at worst, a distinct weakness. 3 on the mutation table is major deformity. While the abnormalities are generally undetectable, everything on the deformity table, on which you roll if you get this result, is a very noticeable physical change. You get one of these, most people will know you're mutated. Neither 3 nor 4 provide anything that is actually helpful. Probably better than a 2 though, which is weakened mind, for which you reduce your obs, comm, int, or tech by 1. Similarly, a 1 is weakened body, which, you guessed it, reduces either your res, might, or fin by 1, and must make a physical change. As you can see, the table drops off hard, which is why most people will want to roll as high as possible. So why risk it? Because you get 2 rolls per mutation. If you get lucky, you can increase 2 stats. Gaining mutations doesn't have to be a straight D20 left to fate. The most important part is mutation slots. I've talked about these before. Players can gain mutation slots from genus or species traits, or by honing. These represent your body being more physically ready to adapt to the rapid onset of mutation. A single honing gives you 2 mutation slots. Being in the mutant genus gives you 2 free slots, and being an overt mutant gives you more still. Mutating without free mutation slots is possible, but almost always results in bad things. Instead of a d20 roll, you roll 2 d20, and then halve the lower roll to get your result. It's theoretically possible to get something good, but those are not good odds. It's best to make sure you have mutation slots before you use a mutagen, and be careful around possible environmental sources. Mutagenic agents come in different forms like mutagen +1, -2, etc. that indicates any pluses or minuses characters get on the table when injecting that agent. Other factors such as rare equipment can also add to the roll. In the mutant genus devlog, I said that mutants always get a +1 on the mutation table. At that point, I envisioned it as a D10 table, but it ended up as a D20. Therefore, mutants get a +2 to rolls. This means mutants can never lose stats from a bad mutation. Note that this only affects the mutation table and not the abnormality or deformity tables. A few last little bits about mutations. Just having a mutation doesn't guarantee that someone can be recognized as a mutant or a mutated specimen of their species, especially by other genera. Some mutations are subtle or completely unnoticeable, such as stronger organs or more intelligence, while others are immediately obvious, such as natural armor or an extra limb. It's always possible, however, that normally obvious mutations could be hidden, disguised, or otherwise ignored. Similarly, the optional visual changes that come with mutations could make an internal mutation also influence one's outward appearance. Whether a mutation is recognized as such is left entirely to GM discretion, but certain results on the mutation table specify that they make a noticeable physical change to indicate the traumatic nature of their effects. It's also recommended that any outward change be reflected in a suitable visual alteration, but again, this is left to GM discretion. From the opposite angle, mutation suppression. Once a mutation takes root, it is very difficult to reverse it. Even if unsightly effects like bone protrusions are removed, the mutant's genetic disposition towards them would always result in more growing to take their place. Anti-mutagen serums are incredibly rare, expensive, and difficult to produce, but are able to target and reverse all effects of a single mutation, purging the body of it. This frees up a mutation slot, if the mutation occupied one, and often painfully reverses any physical changes. The final thing is one of the optional complex rules that groups can use if they want to, the mutation threshold. Beyond a certain point, the instigated changes at a genetic level can cause someone to cross the threshold from their former genus into being recognized as a mutant. When a non-mutant character gains their 5th total mutation from any source, and again on all subsequent mutations, they must take a body check against mutation. They may choose to fail it without rolling. On a fail, the character's genus changes exactly as if they had rolled genetics rewritten. I feel this rule makes logical sense and adds an increasing level of risk the more mutations you take on. Eventually, you're probably gonna fail. Having the threshold at 5 or more mutations means the average person can accidentally fall into a couple of vats without risk, or, genetic risk. Remember that all mutations are in 2s, so it's essentially the 3rd instance of mutation. Sorry, a thought's occurred to me completely off script. Maybe only mutagenic agents do it in 2s, and other sources of mutation that are like random environmental stuff, they just do it once at a time. That would probably work better. This is an optional rule because it adds something else to track and adds a bit of a limiter, therefore it's not for everyone. But I'd assume if you're playing around with mutations, you're either a gambler or a bit mad. And that's it for Mutation. Let me know your thoughts on it. I'll hopefully cover the next class next, but I'll also keep working on player self-improvement. If you like the sound of anything I've talked about here, come and give us a hand. We're working on this with the help of the people over on the Gary and Reaver Discord, which is linked in the description. Come and share your thoughts or just drop in and show your support. We'd also appreciate if you shared this round to anyone you know who might be interested. Thank you very much for watching, subscribe for more Far Waste devlogs, or for board games, card games, miniatures, and TTRPGs like this. And I will catch you later.